Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to the Animenpodcast, the show where we talk about all things anime, like men. My name is Craze, and as always with me, the master duelist himself, Raven. How you doing?
Good, how about you?
I'm doing alright. I thought I'd add a nickname to you, and I'm going to try to change it every episode.
Oh wow, that's commitment.
I know. I wanted to see if I could do it, but if not, it is what it is. How you been, man? What you been up to last time?
So, a little bit, thanks to you. I told you about my card collecting for Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG, so the Japanese cards. And some of them are a little bit warped, and they came like that out of the box or out of the package, which is just so frustrating for card collectors. But it sounds like you kind of, this is a hobby for you as well, and you sent me a nice little link to a video kind of demonstrating how to use a hairdryer to kind of take out some of that warping effect, which I haven't tried yet, but it's definitely something I'm going to be looking into. Maybe once I'm out of this incredibly small apartment and I have a little more space to kind of work around with the cards. But that's going to be a huge project because I've got a lot of kind of those old cards, and many of them suffer from that warping condition. But I appreciate the video and the information, something I'm going to be looking into. And then the other thing was I went to an archery range yesterday. Turns out there's one like 10 minutes walking distance from my apartment. So that was honestly very fun. It was great because it was run by a bunch of nerds, and you could tell because of the music they were playing. So at the end, like after we had done a few practice rounds and kind of gotten the tutorial on how to use the bow, they had a little competition with balloons where they were balloon flowers, and you had to hit 3 of the same color of your balloon flower and then the last one. And the first person to do this won a prize. And the victory music they played was the after battle music from Final Fantasy VII, and I was like, these are my people. Yeah, and the guy who was giving instruction, he was wearing a hat that had Broly on it from Dragon Ball Z. So I was like, oh my god, I've found my people.
That's awesome. I'm glad you found an archery range. I don't see that often here. I mean, I'm in the outskirts of like Colorado, so I do see axe throwing a lot in here. I don't know if that's a thing over there. Yeah,
they also do axe throwing as well, but I get a little nervous with hatchets and stuff. I mean, bows they can be scary too with the arrows, but you know, I enjoyed it a lot. Now I'm interested to hear what you've been up to. Oh yes,
not really crazy much other than what I did yesterday, but like just, you know, work being swamped. I didn't really have time to. I've been wanting to finish up my mech, the Gundam building stuff kit that I have, because I already did obviously I already talked about last week, but I already did the Grogu one from Star Wars, and I've been wanting to work on the more complicated one. I haven't got a chance to this week, but I'm going to. But yeah, just work kind of swamped, as I know it did for you as we were talking off air. But yesterday I had we planned it ahead of time, but like me and my wife did a tattoo date. And it's only the line work, but I got the Last of Us tattoo from Last of Us Part 2, Ellie's tattoo. Did the line work on it. It's on my right arm where she usually got bit. So Taylor got a Junimos from Stardew Valley trying to grab a D&D D20 dice. So she wanted to kind of blend the two together because she loves D&D so much. She loves Stardew. It's her favorite game. So we kind of got gaming tattoos yesterday. It was really cool. It's a little sore right now. It's only a day old, so it's a little fresh. Yeah. And I'll be going back later for shading in June. So I will have pictures of the line work right now, obviously in the video form podcast. But
that is so cool. I mean, the dedication. I especially love you. I've seen your Shadow of the Colossus one. It's really, really cool. Pretty jealous of that.
Have you ever thought about getting a tattoo? Do you have any?
No, I don't have any. I've thought about one, but it's from a book called Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. It's like the last line of the book. And I was thinking about getting something with that and then kind of like an air current, because the line is, if you surrender to the air, you can ride it. And it's just such a beautiful line. And I think if I got a tattoo, that would probably be it.
I can see you having book tattoo quotes on yours. Taylor has one from Lord of the Rings. She has the silhouette on her arm of the entire fellowship from Lord of the Rings. And underneath says, "Not all who wander are lost." So
I love that.
Sorry, that's just me talking. We could talk about tattoos all day, but yeah, that's about my day. I wanted to talk about the trading cards. Is the trading cards that you have to dewarp, is they all from your Kaiba Pegasus decks that you found?
So those ones are actually in pretty decent condition. So it's more from my structure deck Joey and structure deck Yugi from that first set of structure decks. And then I've gotten a few premium packs they had in Japan, and some of those premium packs came over to the States as well, but like much later iterations of them. I think one of the first in America was the one that had like Thane and the Great Sphinx and the other Sphinx cards. But there were premium packs way before that had like Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon and Metal Morph and all that stuff. And the alternate artwork form for the Red Eyes Black Dragon first came out in that premium pack. So those, straight out of the pack, they were already warped. It's frustrating, but that's kind of what you get for trying to hunt down cards from over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I've got my work cut out for me with dewarping a bunch of cards.
Yeah, let me know how that goes for the dewarping.
Yeah.
But anyway, on to our topic of the show, of course. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 2023 anime spring lineup, and kind of just giving a very high level kind of our picks for what we're excited about watching, or, you know, what's kind of upcoming that we're excited about. So I think the best way to kind of go about this is to dive in and your choice. Who do you want to go first?
So we narrowed it down to 3 each, but there's so many this year, this spring, that it's just like, there's like over 30 plus new shows. And I'm like, man, if I had if this was a full-time job, I'd watch them all, but I'm glad we can narrow it down to at least 6. How about you go first?
So my first pick is My Clueless First Friend. The first episode aired on the 9th of April. It's currently streaming on Crunchyroll. There are only 2 episodes out right now, and it is only subbed at the moment. So just to kind of go more broadly before we talk about this series, I wanted to highlight some of the notable projects the staff have worked on or are currently working on as well. So first up, we have the director Shigenori Kageyama, who has worked on the storyboard for episodes 5, 17, and 40 of Angel Heart the Anime, which I didn't know that was an anime. Crunchyroll has the live action version of that, and I fell in love with that. So now that I know there's an anime, I am for sure going back. But he's also done storyboarding for Bleach, Beelzebub, Boruto, and many, many more. This guy, you know, he's done a lot. You may also know him as Yosei Morino, depending on how he's credited and which name he's using. The other person of note on this is Toshio Masuda, who does music, and he did the music for Ghost Hunt, which is one of my favorite anime ever. I mean, also he did Naruto music, but that's really, I mean, not as important because Ghost Hunt is just like the shit, and, you know, that's what we're going to focus on here, right?
Yeah.
Right?
My wife loves that one. She's always wanted me to try to watch it. So it might even be on my list at some point of what we're watching in the future. So
you will have to tell me what you think about it when you do watch it.
I will. I think we've watched a couple years ago, like a couple episodes. We got to like the doll house.
Ooh,
which is like my episode 4 or 5. So I did watch a little bit of it. We just never finished it.
Just to kind of go into the series a little bit. This one is about a transfer student named Takada Taiyo and a girl named Nishimura Akane. And Nishimura is called the Grim Reaper of her class. While everyone else makes fun of her, he thinks it's super cool that she is characterized this way and wants to know more. So when he point blank asks her, why the other kids call her this. She says she doesn't even know for sure, but thinks it's because her eyes remind people of dead fish, which I just think is really funny. But this series kind of brings back, and I think you mentioned this in a series you talk about too. It brings back this trope of the chunibyo, which I have not seen in a minute, and I'm so glad it's back. Takeda is such a happy-go-lucky kid who totally leans into all of this fantasy stuff and just takes it as if it's like literally like she's literally the Grim Reaper, and it's a really interesting dynamic. Anything that would repel other students about Nishimura seems to only make Takeda-kun more excited to hang out with her. In an unexpected way, he holds the other kids accountable to the mean words they've been saying about her by unabashedly taking them at face value. The relationship between Nishimura and Takeda is sweet, pure, and adorable, and Takeda's innocence especially is incredibly disarming. There are so many moments when Nishimura is overwhelmed by the passion and honesty in Takeda's words, and it is beyond adorable to see her get so flustered. This is definitely much more of a laid-back after-school special, but it appeals to me because of the outcast stereotype. As someone who was very self-conscious in high school, though who wasn't, to be fair, I understand the yearning to just have one person in your corner being your cheerleader. So if I had to just kind of, after this brief summary, think of some anime that are similar in nature, maybe not in like totally one-to-one comparison, my mind is drawn to Kimi ni Todoke, Watamote, and Another. Though Another is
more of a horror side. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Do you have anything else to add?
Yeah. First off, Watamote's amazing, that opening, but I'm glad you compared it to that. I want to watch this after you just talking about it, but like I wanted to give another show, or at least a movie that reminded me of this premise, is A Silent Voice. So that more deals with obviously a disability and children not understanding that disability, but and then how children can be so cruel about it and bully people about it. You know, from the onset. On your thoughts about this anime, it's clear that the cruelty is not too extreme, but it can be crushing to a child still, especially for a little girl who's, you know, apparently she has dead fish eyes. To be isolated from every single peer and have this an inescapable spotlight on her is, I can imagine, being tough. The balance between the seriousness of what you're describing and the humor of it. Sometimes it sounds like this is a really good anime. And I can't wait to watch it soon. It's going to probably be on my list of stuff that is going to be in the lineup for my Sunday and a Sunday stuff I do with my wife. And I just hope that everyone can change their minds about Nishimura and start becoming her friend like Takeda did. You know, she seems like a sweet, thoughtful young girl, and it's too often in real life that it is punished with mockery and disdain, like children can be sometimes, when instead it should be rewarded with loving kindness like how Takeda does, you know? So I'm really excited to see it, and I'm glad he chose this out of the spring bin. But yeah, that was My Clueless Friend. And I did look it up. It is going to get a dub as well at some point. This will be in the description down below, but there is a link to Crunchyroll's spring lineup and high dives and everything. So they actually go into really good in-depths on their websites on, you know, the new lineup, the new season picks, the simulcast stuff. And they do a good job telling you when the sub and dub is coming out. So there you go. My pick, and this one I had to choose immediately, is Mashal. This is currently streaming on Crunchyroll, subbed only. At the time of this recording, I've only watched 2 episodes so far. Some notable projects that the staff has worked on. The director, Tomonari Tanaka, who did Engage Kiss. I never got a chance to watch that one. I think that was from the fall lineup of last year. Series composer Yosuke Kuroda, who does the My Hero Academia sound music. Character designers from Higashi Shimja. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering these names, but he's done Blue Lock. Music is from Masaru Yokoyama. I just butchered that one. But Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans, which funny enough is my Gundam building. I have one of the Gundams from that series I'm building right now. And the animation production is from A1 Pictures, who has done famous work like Black Butler, Sword Art Online, and Kaguya-sama Love is War. The best I could probably sum up this show is that if it was Saitama's One Punch Man entering Hogwarts, which my fitting title for this is Harry Squatter and the Boy Who Lives. I've always wanted a Harry Potter-like anime ever since watching Sorcerer's Stone back in 2001, and I think we found it, but it's with a twist. Episode 1 begins with the narrator explaining the premise of the world. Everyone can wield magic in this world, and it's a part of everyday life. Our main protagonist, his name is Mash, is a magicless being, which in this world is taboo. The magic police of this world tend to remove inferior beings who can't use magic at all in order to help flourish magic among the populace. With this in mind, Mash's father decides to raise him in the woods and away from civilization. To keep Mash preoccupied, his father sets him up with a physical regime, so he doesn't stray away from the forest. At this point in the story, Mash is jacked, and he has extreme strength, powerful enough to thwart any magic thrown at his way. He literally can just slap it away. It's ridiculous.
Whoa.
Just that premise alone made me think of just One Punch Man, Mob Psycho. It has that deadpan situational humor that those shows do. If I'm being honest, Mash just comes off as that kind of kind-hearted, naive boy with this immense strength and an unintentional comedic side to him that he doesn't know that he's doing it. But it's ridiculous. It's funny. I haven't got a chance to read the manga, but it's on Shonen Jump. I think it's still currently running right now, but I'm so glad it got a anime adaptation. I think it does it justice. Did you have any thoughts about Mashal?
Yeah. So the way you're describing it, it almost kind of reminds me too of Rock Lee from Naruto, how he's terrible with ninjutsu, but he's great with the fighting taijutsu. I definitely see that going on. I'd love to see, because it sounds like his character might be different from Rock Lee in terms of personality, but I like that that's kind of present too.
Yeah, he comes off as Rock Lee, but like Saitama in the same way. He just doesn't know his own strength, and he just punches anything in his path. And he punches all the magic out. It's just like in the first episode alone, he just literally throws a wand at this guy and breaks his spell power. It's so crazy. It's so funny. I'm so glad it's here on the spring lineup. So that is Mashal. Check it out on Crunchyroll. What's your next pick?
My next pick is Magical Destroyers. The first episode aired on April 8th, and it is currently streaming on Crunchyroll. There are 2 episodes out at this moment. I just watched the second episode today, because it either came out yesterday or today. So I did my homework right before our recording this. Some notable projects the staff have worked on or are currently working on. So we have the director Hiroshi Ikehata, who also directed Tonikawa, Akiba's Trip, and Fully Coolly Progressive. And then the animation studio is Bibury, which have done Quintessential Quintuplets, Risaya-related content, and Azure Lane. I love the idea behind this series so much because this is another throwback to classic anime tropes. The opening sequence is rife with otaku culture references like the Konami Code, a dude with swirly glasses, a beyond adorable, very sassy mascot character, and a female lead with visibly neckbearding twin tails named Anarchy-chan, no less. And of course, she's a huge tsundere as well. Why wouldn't she be? and we see Anarchy-chan transform in the first episode, and oh my ever-loving god, I have found my new waifu. I'll be starting a GoFundMe for our honeymoon fund, so look out for that. All joking and shameless plugging aside, the very badass opening sequence ends, and then we take a step back a little bit into the past when the government confiscates all things precious to weebs and then locks up any dissenters. I mean, Akihabara, the otaku mecca, is overtaken at one point. This is such a goofy, outlandish premise, and I love every second of it. Our protagonist is called Otaku Hero, for God's sake. And Otaku Hero and several others launch a resistance to fight back against this unknown enemy. Some of that firepower consists of real weapons like guns, but they also use some comically on-the-nose things like canned Odin airstrikes. And at one point in the first episode, Anarchy-chan even uses her magical powers to transform enemy bullets into one big metal ball, and then proceeds to hit the mass like a baseball. Her battle cry here is "No hit, no life," a clear nod to "No game, no life." and it just can't make this up. This is over-the-top comedy that plays on many of the beloved anime tropes from the 2000s onward, which just makes for such potent nostalgia fuel. This is clearly made by a team that just loves everything anime, what it's been and what it has become. Let's not forget my favorite part, my all-time favorite trope that I'll proudly shout from the rooftops. This anime has magical girls. In the first episode, we see the gang rescue Blue-chan, another magical girl, and I think I may have changed my mind already. Sorry, Anarchy-chan. New waifu target acquired. I'm gonna let you watch and see why she's my new favorite, but I will say one thing. After all of the fighting is over, all Blue-chan wants to do is go to a New Order concert. We were made for each other. And if I had to pick a best quote so far, it would be, "Our moe will never burn out." And that word's to fucking live by.
When I heard you talk about this off air, I was sold. I should have wrote some more thoughts down, but like it gives me like that panty stalking vibe with like Kill la Kill together. Man, I love the concept. It kind of reminds me of that really mature anime Shimoneta, a boring world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist, except it's them fighting for all the otaku stuff. It just sounds like a full-blown World War weebs kind of, situation. And I'm kind of down for it. It just gives me some of those vibes. And I really love that it has like that comedy. And I can't wait to watch this. This is definitely going up there on my list. Anything else you want to say about it?
I think just one quick note. I think it's very similar in kind of structure or how it develops to Danganronpa, with the kind of mysterious enemy coming in and just like fucking up the very fabric of the world. So if you want to kind of think about a vibe or a comparison, I think that is a good comparison.
I really can't wait to watch that. Guys, check it out. Is it Magical Destroyers?
Yeah.
Yes, that's on Crunchyroll. All right, mine pick, and I wanted to try to find. I know you couldn't, but I wanted to at least do that service, is to try to find something new on High Dive. And I think I found something, and it's really good. It's called The Dangers in My Heart. It's streaming on High Dive right now. So far, there's about 2 episodes out and subbed. Some notable projects that the staff worked on. The director, Hiroaki Akagi, directed a show called Haven't You Heard? I'm Sakamoto. Character designer is from Masato Katsumata, who did the quintessential quintuplets. And then the animated studio that is running this one is Shin-Ai Animation, who did Teasing Master Takagi-san and a couple of cuckoos. So first things off, I think this may look like another, rom-com slice of life, school anime, but this is hardly the case. Our main protag, Kiyotaro, gives a new warped definition to the term Chinobyo. I don't know how to pronounce that one right. How do you say that one again?
Chunibyo.
In his twisted reality, he sees himself as the main protag. However, his heroic intent has been replaced by a bloodlust for killing. And he has his eyes set on the most popular girl in school, and her name is Anna. Kiyotaro finds himself drawn to all things macabre. His scenarios are all homicidal fantasies. This menacing bookworm often finds himself daydreaming about different methods of murder and prefers to be left alone so that his secrets remain undiscovered. However, Anna unwittingly bursts his bubble of solitude, luring her potential killer to start thinking about other things that normal boys would probably think about around his age. And although a romantic outcome seems inevitable for the two, it is unlikely that Kiyotaro will suddenly lose interest in his obsession with butchering those who dare to get in his way with Anna. This honestly feels like, and I don't know if you've watched this series, or at least the comic of it, the end of the fucking world.
Yes.
That's if this show was the anime adaptation of it. It's a love story, but it's not your typical one, though. The show takes a lighthearted approach with its storytelling by infusing the show with humor and wit. It's a nice change of pace to see that the series takes place in middle school, which you don't really see often, because usually the anime rom-coms are tied with the high school cliche setting. So did you have anything to say about The Dangers of My Heart, or In My Heart, not Of My Heart?
I mean, it sounds really interesting and like a really kind of interesting take on, like you said, that typical high school rom-com, and kind of doing something a little more interesting or unexpected with it. I think the main trope I'm kind of drawn to in my mind is it's almost like a reverse yandere situation, which I'm very fascinated by, and I want to know more. So I just might have to bite the bullet and get a subscription to High Dive at this point.
Yeah, High Dive, I didn't realize that High Dive is really, it's a lot more cheaper than Crunchyroll. It's like $5 a month. And I'm like, you know what? I can bite $5 more with my Crunchyroll subscription. So to be honest, it's been worth it for me because I've been watching, and this will come into later, but I've been watching stuff on there right now of what I've been watching. There was stuff that I know you wanted to see that was exclusively on High Dive that you couldn't watch. And hopefully we can at least mention it in, just the bin of other spring things later. But yeah, that was The Dangers in My Heart. It's on High Dive. Check it out right now. All right, what's your third and final pick?
So my last pick is something more established. So the Ancient Magus' Bride season 2. So I think it's good to kind of shout out some of the more independent or some of the smaller kind of stuff that's coming out. But then I think it kind of behooves us to also mention something from a little bit more of an established team. And so that's why I bring up season 2 of the Ancient Magus' Bride. This is currently streaming on Crunchyroll. So far, just subbed, no dub yet. At the time of our recording, there are 2 episodes out, and some of the notable projects. So the screen director, Kohei Tokuoka, he's also was the screen director for Bungo Stray Dogs, and then also the movie for that. So that's, again, another well-known kind of staple of the anime community. But just kind of getting into season 2, it opens with Chisei getting ready to go to school. And everyone knows I love a good school anime. And don't worry, Elias decides to go along with Chisei to college, and he experiences new emotions like the fear of letting her go so she can spread her own wings a little bit. They also introduced some pretty interesting characters this season, like Alexandra Heath. And this character, oh my god, she is a humanoid caterpillar and the school nurse. We first see her doing kind of like doting on Chisei, and it is so cute. I hope we see more of her. Also, the dorm mothers are cats, and Chisei gets to pick one to watch over her. Like, we don't really see them in the second episode, and that is a crying shame. We better see more of them, or I'm going to be really mad about that. And let me just say, I know I've been back and forth, but I'm serious this time. I found my new waifu, and her name is Lucy Webster, and we're in love. And at the end of the first episode, Chisei receives a mysterious text to meet in the courtyard. When she gets there, a girl is on the verge of collapse, and Chisei catches her. And I kept thinking, and this isn't really explained too much in the second episode either, but what is this going to be about? Who is this girl? And, you just have to watch to find out more. But one of the things that kind of draws me to this is fans of the series are going to love the introduction of new characters and whole new adventures. And I think that's kind of the clincher here is, there's enough new stuff and enough kind of expanding on Chisei's character, kind of drawing in some of her past experiences with school that were very traumatic from years ago, and kind of those feelings bubbling up to the surface. We're getting such new and interesting things, and it's going in such an interesting direction that I'm really excited to see more of what the second season is going to bring.
I've only watched the first episode. It was way back when it released. I think, was it 2016? That old,
something like that.
Man, it's so crazy that it's taken this long for season 2 to finally come out. But I watched it and I really loved. From what I remember, I thought it was beautifully paced. I thought it had a really nice, distinct atmosphere and a complex narrative to boot. I mean, I loved Chisei, and I love that. Was it Elias? Doesn't he like adopt her or save her from? Like, it's very vague in my head, but I'm trying to remember. Like, she was like a slave. Yeah. So I love those characters, and I love. I'm one that to always enjoy being thrown into an immersive world with monsters and magic, as I'm a sucker for that kind of trope with fantasy, especially with the isekais, of course. But I wasn't disappointed with it. Is of what I watched so far. I would love to get back into the series, and season 2 looks like it's going in a different direction than when I first watched it, and I really like the school setting, of course. So it's nice to see that, and I really need to catch up on that.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing for me, and I think this is something just from the what you've briefly mentioned about this, or what drew your attention in the first time, is kind of the monsters and magic and fantasy tropes. This is really played up really well. You have like Titania and Oberon. You have references to all sorts of mythologies and lores about magical beings that just kind of inhabit this world and influence and impact kind of Chisei's direction and Elias's direction. And it's just really cool, all of the different kind of mythology and lore elements that they weave into the world that they've created. And I think if I know you at all, I think that's really what you're going to love about this series and about season 1, and then ultimately how they expand upon that even more in season 2.
Well, you definitely sold me. I might have to add this to my list and play some catch up when I inevitably choose my next anime with my wife to binge. So yeah, that was The Ancient Magnus Bride season 2. Check it out on Crunchyroll. There's a dub and sub on the first season, and I think it's gonna get a second season dub as well. My final pick, and I had to watch this right in the morning because of the hectic week I've already had with work, and yesterday I just didn't have the time and I was in a lot of pain from the tattoo. But why Renalia ended up at the Duke's mansion. This is currently streaming on Crunchyroll. It's subbed and dubbed day of, which I thought was really cool.
Ooh.
At the time of this recording, I've only watched one episode. Notable projects that the staff worked on, directed by Junji Yamamoto, who did More Than a Married Couple, but Not Lovers. The animation production team is Typhoon Graphics. The series composer is from Mitsukata Hirota, who did Rent a Girlfriend. And the character designer is Haruna Hashimoto, who did My Hero Academia animation. So you know what you're going to get yourself into if you've watched My Hero Academia. Fun fact about this series as a whole: it's based on a manhwa webcomic of the same name. And if you don't know what a manhwa is, it's a Korean comic, like webcomic series, or webcomics that is heavily inspired by Japan manga comics. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see a Korean manga kind of get adapted into an animated form. I don't see that a lot. And there's like very little ones that I know that get that kind of treatment. So I thought that was kind of a cool little fun fact. So, like I said, I watched it this morning, so these are going to be my quick thoughts on the matter. But after Hanasaki Rinko dies a mysterious death, she wakes up in a popular novel as a minor character named I've been messing up her name all morning. Raeliana, who's destined to die from the hands of her fiancé, so that the story of the novel can progress. She uses her knowledge about the plot of the novel to prevent her own death, and proposes to the male lead of the story. His name is Noah Win Knight, which is an awesome last name. He pretends to be her fiancé for protection until she can break off her previous engagement. Like we've talked about before in previous episodes of the podcast, I'm never going to get over how ridiculously long titles are for isekai stories. It's hilarious, and perhaps because the industry is so oversaturated with them, like we discussed, that the publishers don't have enough confidence for people to watch these titles unless, they exactly spell out what to expect for the story. So I just thought it was a long title, and it kind of invokes the My Life as a Villainess vibes that I've been sorely missing since I binged through that series last year. But I do want to go back to the animation studio handling the series. Typhoon Graphics, it's a very young studio. I think they started up in 2017. So they're very young. They've only been doing this for less than 10 years now. And so they worked on these first projects called One Room and Roommates. And I watched Roommates with my wife because it was a very short anime series. It was like a 5-minute episode, and it was like 10 episodes each. So you could do this in one sitting and watch the whole thing. What was interesting about these projects that they did, and it's the only thing I could look up from them that they've done before this big project that they're doing, is that what I loved about it is that it focused on a first person perspective. and involved this you. I guess you're invoking yourself as you, being that person living with these hot anime girls or boys. It's a really neat premise, especially for being a first project to get their feet wet. I'm just a little hesitant because this is their first big project of sorts, and I'd hate for this anime adaptation of this Korean, manga to get, bombed. The plot has so much potential, especially with the mysterious circumstances in the first episode surrounding her real world death, which is what's intriguing me to keep watching the show right now. And like I said, it's just nice to see that Korean webcomics are getting this kind of love in the anime business. I just hope that my worries can be thrown out the window once I watch more episodes coming out over the next couple weeks. Do you have any thoughts about the Duke's Mansion? I'm just going to say the Duke's Mansion because it's too long for me.
I do not blame you for that. I think, when I saw you put this on the list as one of your picks, I was very excited. I haven't watched it yet, but this is definitely one of the ones that I've been keeping my eye on and one that I actually want to watch. I really like the comparison to my life as a villainess. I think that I'm hoping that kind of is there, and we kind of see they're almost period pieces. I mean, it's really a different world, but it almost comes off as a period piece. And I really like this kind of thing where we're leaning more into this like high society, almost like Bridgerton or Downton Abbey or something, but anime. So I'm super excited to dive into this one.
Yeah, it definitely has that Victorian feel. When she gets isekai'd in there, it definitely has that Bridgerton vibe. So in the Downton Abbey kind of sense that you were talking about. So yeah, I think this is right up your alley. But yeah, that was the I'm going to say the full title so everyone can look it up. Rai Renalia ended up at the Duke's Mansion. That is over at Crunchyroll. It's subbed and dubbed. First episode's out right now. Please check it out. Yeah, and that was our 3 picks. It was kind of a small episode, but hey, can't complain. Yeah. And I just want to say there are so many anime this spring that caught our attention, but of course we could only list a couple here because we wanted you to at least check out a few. But there's a couple other ones that I've been watching. I even watched some of these this morning that really caught my eye, and I'm really excited to watch more of it. It was Hell's Paradise. Please check that one out if you love Mappa Studios. This is their new anime. Skip and Loafer if you want another slice of life. My Love Story with Yamada-kun at level 999 is another slice of life we're watching. Please check those out. Is there any other ones you want to shout out?
I think the big one, and we sort of referenced this, was Insomniacs After School, which unfortunately is on High Dive and might just be the final straw that breaks the camel's back and causes me to actually subscribe to High Dive. But I'm very excited for that one.
Obviously, there's some big names out there. The Demon Slayer new season's out. You got Dr. Stone, which is a popular one. Vinland Saga season 2 is still running right now. So those are obviously the big ones that are in the spring anime lineup. But we really wanted to focus on the smaller, new incoming ones that really got our attention, that are new, that are going to be popping out. And I'm hoping a lot of people will love those. Just let us know your thoughts on some of the anime that we talked about and what's coming out this spring. Let us know what you think of our picks. Were these on your list as well? What upcoming anime are you excited to dive into this spring? Tell us down below in the YouTube comments or email us over at theanimenpodcast@gmail.com. Who knows? Maybe we'll share your recommendations on the next podcast episode. But before we go, aside from the spring lineup we're watching, what else are you watching right now?
Okay, so I am watching Gosick and Death Parade. So both of these I had watched some time ago, but I was feeling in the mood for some more kind of dark, macabre, kind of murder mystery type anime. So these I remember really liking a lot when I originally watched them. It's been long enough that I'm a little fuzzy on what actually happens, but basically Gosick is a murder mystery type of thing where there's this kid who his father is like a high-ranking officer in the Japanese military, and he's kind of transferred to a European city in 1924 to attend school, and he receives a lot of kind of prejudice, kind of suspicion because he looks so different from everyone else. And this is 1924. And he is just spending a lot of time in the library because of this, and comes across this mysterious young woman who seems to never leave the library. And it turns out that she has an unrivaled kind of detective prowess where even her brother is a full-fledged detective, and he's coming to her for advice on solving these cases. And our main protagonist kind of gets roped into this, and it just scratches that itch of like murder mystery, regular crime mystery, period piece set in the 20s. It's one of my favorite eras. So it's so cool. I highly recommend you check it out. And then Death Parade, another really good one, more of a fantasy, kind of dark, macabre. Like I said, this is an anime that the main location is this bar, sort of in purgatory, or kind of in between life and death. It's when people have just died, and that knowledge of actually having died is kind of kept from them. And it's two people pitted against each other in a high stakes game. The game changes from episode to episode, but as they're kind of playing through these high stakes games, their memories start to come back to them, especially of the moments just before they died. And this game kind of brings out their character and kind of helps the staff in this bar to make the final judgment of, do you go to heaven or do you go to hell? It's such a cool concept and just such an interesting character study. Really love both of these series so much.
I love Death Parade. That opening, I never skipped.
Oh, yeah.
The opening doesn't even like invoke what the actual show's about, but just showing how fun and crazy that opening is so amazing. I love that you're watching that one again. I haven't watched that in over a couple years, but I remember it vividly. I love that each episode kind of does like a death episode of the week or something, where it's like these people dying and what they went through in one episode. It makes you care about these people and what they went through, whether it was good or bad, and deciding whether they go to heaven or hell. I think that's a really cool premise. And there's obviously like the subplot later on, but we won't get into that obviously later on. But yeah, Go Sick was something I've always wanted to watch. When we were watching Moriarty and the Patriot, which is awesome, like Sherlock Holmes anime that I didn't know how good it was going to be until we watched the whole thing. But we were trying to find more Victorian era anime at the time, and Go Sick was like number one. We haven't watched it yet, but we were really digging Moriarty at the time. And we were like, maybe we should try to find our next anime that's in, Victorian era. And it's nice to see more of those. And I didn't realize how many there were. But Black Butler's a good example of that. Obviously has some of that kind of feel. But yeah, check those guys out. Those are both on Crunchyroll?
Yes.
Perfect. Give it guys a watch. Kind of the same thing I'm doing right now is doing a rewatch on some old anime. First one is something that my wife watched first, and I never saw it. So, Golden Time, and is this one that you watched as well?
Yes, it is.
Man, I think this is one of the best romance animes I've ever watched, at least in my opinion. And I love that it takes place in college. You don't really see a lot of anime take place in a college setting. It's usually, like I said, high school is that trope, but it's nice to see a young adult version for this kind of anime. And I really love them dealing with the main character who has amnesia and how serious that is. I just found that it felt so real. Like, this is what people with amnesia would deal with, is dealing with like having this new this new personality. I was like, wow, if I had if I had amnesia, I would definitely probably be feeling the same things he's feeling. And he ran away from his problems after having this major accident and then moving to Tokyo to go, do college and stuff. And then he meets this girl and trying to deal with, her stuff and her mentality. There were some moments where I was thinking like, what is wrong with the women in this show?
Yeah.
But I just really loved how personal it got. It felt like a real relationship with the two main characters, and them dealing with, him dealing with the amnesia and some of his memories coming back and afraid to lose her because he won't think of her anymore. And the ending, I feel like that last episode really like stretched it with the paranormal stuff, especially with like seeing his original self outside of his body. I thought that was really cool to see, but I really just couldn't get over the fact that like he was like some kind of ghost causing misfortune upon the new him. And I was like, wait, so is he basically God? Because he's like changing the weather, he's causing bad luck. I mean, I was like, what is going on here? I like the idea of him being a ghost out of his body, but like him being supernatural and having all these godlike powers, I was like, what? But it was still a good series overall. I enjoyed the ride. It's just that last ending, it just felt rushed at the end. Going on to more romance, I guess, per se, is Clannad. I haven't seen this show in over 10 years. And so I felt after Golden Time, I was like, I think it's time to watch Clannad again because my wife's never seen it. And I thought, why not put her through that turmoil?
Oh my God.
Well, because some of the Golden Time stuff kind of reminded me a little bit of Clannad, at least. Not to the degree of the amnesia and stuff, but just like that kind of the feel. So I was like, you know what? Let's keep this train going. And Clannad, we watched the whole thing. Also all on High Dive. I do want to talk about how complicated it was to watch this show on High Dive. The first season was available on, because I'm watching High Dive through Xbox through its application. I was able to watch all of Clannad in dub on High Dive, no problem. And I couldn't find season 2. I'm like, okay, well, where's season 2? I want to watch After Story. After Story is the best season, I think, in my opinion, for Clannad to kind of wrap this thing up, and it's so emotional and stuff. Like season 2 is like, I feel like season 1 is, the slice of life, and then season 2 is the realities and harsh life.
Yeah.
Of some sort. So I wanted to find After Stories, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and it's telling me it was on High Dive, and I'm like, well, I can't find it on High Dive. So I go over to Amazon to see if I could watch it on there, and it's saying you need a subscription to watch After Stories. You need a High Dive subscription. And so I was like, well, I already have a High Dive subscription on my Xbox. So what's going on here? So I had to get another subscription for High Dive through Amazon, because Amazon does that weird, like, you want to add a subscription so you can watch, HBO or Stars or something on Amazon and not on like, their actual applications. So I did a 7-day trial. So I was like, okay, now we need to binge After Stories in like 7 days. And we did it. So we canceled the subscription, so I didn't get charged a second High Dive subscription. But it was just such a weird process to watch Clannad. But yeah, Clannad's such a great story. I loved it. My wife scaringly predicted the ending halfway through like season 2. And I was like, I couldn't say anything, but I was like, I am surprised that it's like you basically wrote this. I mean, I don't want to go into spoilers, but she basically just predicted the whole thing by the end, because we were like, there's some plot lines I forgot. And then getting to the end, like after the high school bit, because they do a little bit more of the high school stuff in the second season. So halfway through the second season is when it gets to the after high school, them going through their relationships after high school, and then being an adult and stuff. That's where it gets real. But man, she guessed everything, and it was scary how accurate she was. And I had to put on the best poker face so she didn't catch it, because I wanted to see if she'll still suffer. I made her cry once with this show. I was surprised how much she didn't cry at this show until basically when with the daughter and the father. You know what I'm talking about, but just up to that point is when she finally cried. I was like, yes, I made her cry at this show. I don't know. I don't know why I wanted some victory there for her to shed a tear, but she cried so much at like Fruits Basket. So I was like, okay, she has to cry at Clannad, right? Did you want to say anything about those two shows?
I mean, I think you've done a really good job kind of summing them up. They're both really beloved series for me. Some of the staples are like my fondest memories from this genre of anime, still to this day. Clannad definitely looks very dated, but it's still just so good. Even the dub is just so funny, especially
it's so
in the
good.
first season. Yeah. Oh my god. Just there's some hilarious moments, and I just love it.
One of the best moms in anime is in there. So
that's true.
But yeah, I love the dub. We watched it all in dub. So just Clannad is something. Whenever I think of just rom-com anime, that's like the first one. And surprisingly, for it being a 2008 production, I think the animation's still pretty good, except the robot in that parallel world stuff they show is a little rough, but it's not that bad, honestly. I was surprised how beautiful this show still looks. And you can kind of see because I know it started off as a visual novel. So I can, especially with those intros, I could definitely feel like this feels like a visual novel introduction title song. They do like the shots of like all the main girls that you can date in the opening titles. But I was like, yeah, so it definitely had that like visual novel feel. But overall, I think it still holds up to this day as one of the best, anime slice of life high school romance animes. I'm going to keep adding more titles to it. But yeah, I just think it's one of the best ones out there. So, but enough about what we're watching, because that was it. Before we go, what's our next topic?
Our next topic is very apropos to the real world. Mother's Day is coming up, and we're going to talk about some of our favorite anime moms from anime.
I'm so excited to talk about the anime moms out there. So I don't know if we'll talk about the same ones from the last two podcasts, but maybe we'll try to branch out a little bit more. I don't know. I'll have to really think about it. Anyway, if you guys want to check out any of what we were talking about today, we're going to leave some links down below of the Crunchy Spring 2023 lineup and the High Dive lineup. So check those out. There's so many more, like I said, of spring anime that we didn't even mention. Check us out over at Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're still working on the Apple Podcast. I'm still like having some difficulties with the Apple sign-ins and stuff, but I promise you that will be our last one, and we'll have all the trifecta of podcast services. But obviously, email us over at theanimenpodcast@gmail.com with your comments, questions, concerns. Maybe we'll read them over on the podcast in the next episode. Check us over at Instagram and Twitter, so we'll leave that all down below. But before we go, where can people find you when we're not talking about anime?
So I have my YouTube channel, Ravenrook, and I do a lot of horror games, a lot of indie, and also big budget horror games. I also am currently playing through the original .hack IMOQ series as well, and I'm going to be kind of adding some more retro PS2 games as well to my lineup as I kind of finish series, but I do both gameplay and then reviews of the games that I complete.
You're also doing Fatal Frame right now, right?
Oh yes, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. Yeah. That the first.
The third one? Is that the third or second one?
It's the fourth one.
Okay.
It's the one that never saw a North American release until now, and so I'm so glad to finally be able to play it.
Yeah, I played. I'm trying to remember which one I played. I played one like a couple Octobers ago because they started remaking they started remastering them again. And I think the Lunar Mask one is the recent one. What was that last one? I'm trying to remember.
Maiden of Blackwater.
Yes, that's the one we played. And I've always wanted to get more into that one because of the photography, taking pictures of the ghosts and stuff. I thought that was a really cool like gameplay combat mechanic. So
that's where you can find me. And how about where we can find you?
I'm over at YouTube, grumblegamers.com, still running through Dead Space and Last of Us. We're actually almost done with both of those, and we'll be moving on to Resident Evil 4 remake at some point. So look out for that. And we're about to do the Slay the Princess demo because we just did a new the new demo just came out. So it's like a director's cut, they call it. They added like 3 more princesses to the endings, and I'm like,
what?
Well, so there's more princesses you can get, and they improved the visuals too. So it looks a lot better and cleaner. So like they definitely improved it, and I can't wait to see the full release. Hopefully by the end of this year of 2023. But yeah, I'll keep your eyes out for Slay the Princess demo. Should already be out actually by the time of this recording. So, but yeah, that'll do it for the podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. We'll see you guys for the next one. Until then, I'm Craze.
And I'm Ravenroof.
Weebs out.
Weebs out.